Well, hello, everybody. Welcome to Alive. My name is Patina, and today I have a friend on with me, and Assel Jean-Pierre Jr., and this is going to be what I call a cold interview. Not that there's no friendship here, but I haven't really done like all the questions that I do with my other guests. Mm-hmm. So this is just going to be, hey, let's talk.
Let's do it.
So, and in case you guys don't know, if you're not a part of my church, Assel is on staff here and he oversees all of our traditional worship. Mm-hmm. He is a brilliant, unbelievable musician. He's sitting here being humble, pretending that it's all fine, but no, he's like amazing. So I wanted our church to get to know you a little bit. Mm-hmm. I also want, you've shared a couple stories with me when we've been talking, and I want to kind of get into that, but so that we know you better and so that I know you better. I said this earlier that, I when I want to know somebody better, I just do it a live interview, and then like I can get all the dirt on
That's
them.
it. It's the easiest way. You got to record it and everything.
Let's record it and put it out there for the world. So to give people a little bit of background about you, I would love to talk about your childhood, where you were raised, how you were raised, and all of those things. So where did it all begin for Assel?
So I was born in North Shore Hospital. That's Long Island, New York. And then me and my family, we lived in Brooklyn for a little bit. And then when my sister was born in 93, we lived in Queens. So I was basically born and raised in Queens, Cambria Heights, New York for about 16 years. That's where my dad was my first piano teacher. He started kind of teaching me at 2, so he says. Having a 2-year-old, I don't know how true that is now, but he was teaching he was teaching me at 2, and then kind of just, always grew into it. And I grew up Seventh-day Adventist, so I was going to...
I did not know that. Mm-hmm. Okay, see? Look at there right now.
So I would... But I say I grew up Seventh-day Adventist, but later on as I got older, I realized I grew up bi-denominational in the sense that my dad was always playing at churches on Sunday, and I would also be going to church on Saturday. So at a certain age, I want to say like 10, 12, I would go with him on Sundays to play with him. So I was going to church Saturday and Sunday, kind of getting double doses of everything. And so doing that kind of started giving me unique perspectives on understanding church and just different styles of ministry and worship. And then around 12, I was trained classically. So at about 12 years old is when I started playing more in church, started on organ. Literally, organ training for me was, my dad said one day on Saturday, he said, all right, you're going to go on the organ. Didn't know how to play the organ, didn't know how it worked. And I'm just sitting there playing, and it's so loud, and everybody can hear you making mistakes. And I'm just like, but, it was kind of those experiences that in the moment I hated it. Yeah. But now I'm like, I don't get fazed by anything because I was kind of put in these fires.
Oh, wait. So before you move on, before the 12, you're 12 years old, in case people don't understand, explain what Seventh-day Adventist is.
Okay, so Seventh-day Adventism is a denomination that kind of, let me try to keep this, I'm going to kind of keep it politically correct. They follow the seventh-day Sabbath, and they believe that that is the true day of worship, the day that they should worship. They kind of have other stipulations and rules that are unique to them doctrinally, but they just simply believe that you need to go to church on Saturday. The Sabbath is, Saturday, and everything kind of revolves around going to church on Saturday. Yeah,
and, and I have friends who are Seventh-day Adventists, and they are true believers in Jesus and all of those things. So that's really interesting. I did not know. And the other thing I want you to clarify too is your name is Assel Jean-Pierre. So what is your background? Like, where are your parents from?
Oh yeah. So my father and mother are both Haitian. They both came from Haiti.
So Jean-Pierre is like a French.
Okay. Yep. So my father was in Haiti till he was about 20, 21 years old. Then he migrated to the United States. My mom actually came when she was younger. She came when she was 4. So my mom is a lot more Americanized than my father. Yeah. But in defense of my father, he's pretty like modern, and he doesn't have an old school mentality at all. No. So yeah, I'm definitely Haitian born and raised.
That's cool. Yeah. Have you been back? Do you go back to Haiti?
Yeah, I used to go pretty often a while ago, but now with so much instability in the country, it's just not safe.
It's hard. Yeah. And in case people don't know, you said your dad was your piano teacher. Yeah. Your dad is a brilliant musician as well. Is everybody in your family, are they all musicians?
Yeah. So especially on my dad's side of the family, you had my father, who's the oldest, and so all of his siblings played. So my dad played piano, and then you have my aunt who also plays piano, but she's mainly a doctor.
Okay.
And then you have my uncle who plays bass, who, rest in peace, he passed away 2 years ago, but amazing bass player, amazing musical mind. And then you have another uncle of mine who is an awesome, just like freak genius musician. Like he's just, that's Wellmere. He's just like, just to be around him is just like, whoa, like the way you think is just amazing. But yeah, especially on my dad's side, I was like, music is very heavy. On my mom's side, my mom sings. It's not as musical, but there are, certain hints of musical traits there. But my dad's family is kind of where like music is like, this is the profession, this is what we doing, we going to the top kind of thing.
That's so cool. I love it. I love, and fun fact is your dad serves in a church right down the road.
That's right. Two churches down the road, Amity Missionary Baptist Church. Yeah.
There you go. I love it. So, okay. So back to your 12 years old, your dad's throwing you in. I love that because Shauna would say the same. You hear us the way we are with each other. Just throwing you into the mix, and you're having to sink or swim and figure it out. So now you're in these two churches. Then what happened? Like when did you come to know? So you obviously were in a Christian home. When did you make a personal decision? Like, would it just part of your life? You're like, this is who I am? Or
so I think, and then also remember my grandfather was a pastor. So I've kind of just been in church my whole life. Like I could have a PhD as far as church experiences and the politics and relations because I just seen so much.
Yes.
Being a musician, being sometimes, very rarely, but sometimes being a regular person. And also when you have family who are pastors and musicians, you see so much behind the scenes.
Yes, you do.
So it kind of came to a place, I think I was about 12 years old. And, they were having an altar call or whatever. And I just kind of felt like, I know this, I know what I'm doing, I know what I believe. And, that's when I got baptized for the first time. But at 12 years old, how much life do you really know? So yes, that was the first time I got baptized, but I actually ended up getting baptized a second time. But we'll get to that. Yeah.
Yes, those second baptisms. So when did you leave New York and land here in Florida?
So I think it was about 2006 or 7. Yeah, because I was about 16 years old in the middle of my junior year of high school. And so my dad had kind of always been vacillating between staying in New York and leaving. And he kind of just felt like now's the time to go. And I was just like, hey, you guys pay my bills. So what am I going to do? So we came to Florida. I was actually lived in Orlando. I was right by University High School. That's where I went. And it was cool, and I've come over time to really enjoy Florida more because it's way less expensive,
than New York City.
Yeah, way less toxic. The people in Florida are a lot nicer than the people in New York.
Yeah.
And I love the weather too. And so I'm a person, like everybody says, yeah, you grew up in New York, you should be used to the cold. I hate the cold. I don't like it. So when I'm here, I'm like, I feel good. I'm at home. And when I was able to come here, I actually hid the fact that I played piano in school. So nobody ever knew until maybe the last year, my senior year. They just saw something randomly and it was like, you can play piano. I was like, kind of, yeah.
That's funny. Why did you hide it? You're just like,
it wasn't intentional. I've just never been the kind of person to be like, oh, look at me, look at what I can do.
Yes.
So people who kind of see me do something is because you kind of caught me in a moment. So I think what might have happened is I don't know, somehow I ended up in a band class. Oh, it's a jazz band or whatever. And they're like, all right, we need a pianist. And I was like, I could play a little bit. And he was like, okay, cool. And then they were like, they gave me the song. They was like, I just play it. So I started playing. He was like, you cannot play just a little bit. That is a lot more than da-da-da-da-da. And, we ended up doing all these competitions and would win first place. And they got a plaque that I'm in the wall.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah,
But what's really cool about that is you come to this brand new school. You don't know anybody, but you're kind of your people are musicians and you found that place and now you're on the wall and
life and like a guy says, your gift will bring you in front of great people and your character will keep you there. So
that's good. That's good. So you're in high school. Tell me about your life. So what happened? Where's God in your life and what are you doing?
So I think around that time, so we're talking 16, 17, looking back, it's like I'm kind of doing pretty good for myself because around 17 years old, I'm also the minister of music at Ward Chapel AME. So I'm 17 years old, bringing in more than $1,000 a month, and that's all I'm doing is playing on Sundays. And I'm able to kind of take care of the things that a normal 17-year-old do. I'm not living an extravagant lifestyle, but I'm kind of able to do all the things that I want. And then now I'm kind of growing into my abilities more. I was with my dad like every weekend on Saturdays.
Is that why he moved? Was he, a side note, was he moving to serve in a church, or what was he doing when he was here?
So he kind of always wanted to come. And then when the opportunities, like job opportunities in churches, started to, kind of reach out to him and say, hey, if you come here, we can, that's kind of what solidified it for him.
All right.
So by the time he came, he was playing for Antioch, and then there was a church on Saturdays he was playing for. And then just more opportunities kind of started to develop from that. And so actually on Saturdays, he's still there at Palmdale SDA, where Whitley Phibbs is the pastor.
Okay.
So kind of being around Whitley Phibbs, now you have this international world-renowned singer who's teamed up with my dad and it's taking the church to a whole nother level. So we're doing all these kind of crazy programs, orchestral this, concerts here left and right, and I'm able to kind of contribute to that. So my dad is do this and do that, and so now I'm directing choirs, I'm directing orchestras, and I'm doing this all at like 16, 17. And so it kind of like solidified like, okay, I love this and I love what I'm doing. So I just kind of kept pursuing it. On a more personal route, I think I was at a place where, I know God is real, and he was a very key component of my life. It was just kind of figuring out what I'm willing to sacrifice. So I remember, like, I knew, like, I had something special going on with me because from a very young age, I could say I would, like, hear the voice of God. And so I'll give you two stories that really stick with me now. I remember I was in high school, and we're in New York, when the schools sometimes would be like very close to the subways. And so like there's these big tunnels that you walk through, and then, open space in the subway if you go through. And so in school, after school, we're like, it's me and my friend, we're playing with this other guy. We're kind of play fighting, but we're not really fighting. And while we're play fighting, my back is like turned, I'm not looking at anything. And all I hear is the spirit telling me duck. And so I don't question it. I get down. The minute I duck, I see a fist fly straight over my head.
Oh my goodness!
And I look back like, "Yo, what are you doing?" And he was like, "Oh, I thought y'all was fighting for real." Some other random person who's just trying to take my head off. And I'm like, "What are you doing?"
Wow.
And I look back, I'm like, if I didn't listen in that moment, I would have been, And then the second time that sticks out clear to me is when I came to Florida, and she wasn't my mother-in-law at the time. But Jen's mother was singing a song she was singing Great Is Thy Faithfulness. And she had asked me to kind of accompany her. And she said, you know what, during the second chorus, I want you to play, do a solo or whatever. And that was kind of the first time I had been in that situation, playing for someone and kind of taking a solo within that, at such a young age. And so I remember she sings, and then the chorus comes and I start playing, and I just hear voices just like, just play and be yourself. And I was like, who is this? And it's like, oh, it was like, it's Michael. And I was like, Michael, like what? And I kind of felt crazy, but then when I kind of told the story, she's like, look, God's talking to you, don't be afraid of that. Just continue to explore. And I kind of just always would hear the voice of God a little more. Yes. And as I got older, it really started coming to a point where like, okay, I can't be on both sides. Because, at 18 to 23, I'm kind of doing what an 18 young man with a little money and a little freedom is doing, entertaining things I'm not supposed to be entertaining, having certain liberties with certain females and stuff like that. And it just kind of came to a place where it was like, God's giving you too much and you don't have the luxury of being on both sides. Because I never wanted to end up as a person who you played and you spoke and you blessed so many people and so many people gave their hearts to God, and then now when you come before God, he's like, yeah, I used you to do all that stuff, but when it was me and you fell short. And so that actually led to one of the biggest kind of line in the sands for me, because at about 23, I remember at that point I was like in a really very toxic relationship, but it had very strong spiritual elements in it too, to the point where like you're talking about, I'm not that hyper churchy religious person, but like there were demons that were being dealt with, and like heavy prayers that kind of had to happen. And it was like, it came to a point where it's like, okay, you're either going to walk this way with God, or you're going to keep trying to play with stuff and open up yourself to attack.
Yeah.
And so at about 23, I made the decision, you know what, God, you're going to be everything I consult, number one in all things. And that's why, like, Proverbs 3:5-6, I love that verse so much, because some people call me crazy. I take it literally.
Yeah.
Like, there's not an aspect of my life that I do not consult God with. Like, from how I had children to, you know, how I married my wife to how much I would charge for a gig, what gigs I would take, what I started, anything I was doing. All right, Lord, what you want me to do? And it's kind of led me to a point now at 33, I'm living a life I shouldn't have been living.
Yeah.
You know, and I can completely attribute that all to God.
So trust in the Lord with all your heart. Lean not on your own understanding. In all thy ways,
acknowledge him,
that
path.
and he'll direct your path. And I just want to make sure everybody knew what that scripture was, because that is a pivotal thing. I think that people compartmentalize.
Yeah.
This is over here. This is over
Right.
here. God, I'll talk to you about these things. And what you said was, it's all yours.
That's it.
There's nothing here. So you were 23 when you did that, which I think is fantastic, because even as Christians, you know, our life, it's not to say that you didn't know Christ.
Right.
But what did Jesus mean when he says, you know, you have to take up your cross and
That's
follow
right.
me. You have to deny yourself, and because Jesus is our leader, our
That's
king.
Right. That's right.
And so if you have a king, then the king is the leader and you're the follower.
That's right.
Right?
That's right.
So after that happened, you said you had a moment of baptism. What did that happen around that time?
Yeah.
or?
So I remember at 23 when I make that decision, right? I remember it was January 1st, and I said, all right, you know what? I'm making the decision to be celibate. I'm going to trust you, Lord, you know. And I mind you, I have a girlfriend at the time, that same, you know, not so good relationship. And, you know, she kind of wasn't thrilled about it, but she was going to change my mind. And so I remember, like, we ended up taking a break in March, and then, like, really break up around April. And then I want to say, like, May, like, something in my mind just soul ties, and it just kept playing in my mind. And I was like, okay.
This is weird. Okay, go ahead.
No,
But
go ahead.
No. Somebody literally yesterday was talking. I want to hear what you say about this, because I think this is an important topic.
Okay, so I just kept hearing the word soul ties, and I was like, you know, that's very important, because there's certain things I don't want to necessarily carry into my marriage, or even just carry with me in essence. And so I remember, like, you know, I was sitting there praying, and I just heard, like, I heard a dark voice say, oh, there's no way you're ever going to get away. Like, the only way you'll get away is if you die. And I started thinking, I was like, wait, hold on. If I die. And I started reading scriptures on baptism, and I started really looking into it, and I said, hold on. When you get baptized, you die. And that's when God put on my heart, that's what it is.
Yes.
And so that exactly was the reason why I got rebaptized. It wasn't so much, oh, I believe in God again. It was,
Yes.
I need to kind of reset myself,
Yes.
in a sense, and die to all of this stuff that was going on, and kind of move forward from here. So that's in essence why I did. And fun fact is, that same girl who, throughout the process, kind of seeing what I was doing, started changing her life over, and we actually ended up getting baptized at the same time. And so from that point on, like, I really, like, didn't sleep with nobody. I wasn't dating nobody, you know. And that's when, because now I'm moving by full faith, my life gets very crazy from that point on, like, crazy.
And we need to talk about that, because in our culture, right? In our world, it is like you making that decision to say, I'm not dating anybody. I'm only going to follow whatever God says. That's almost unheard of.
Oh, listen, the stories I could tell you. A fun one I always say is, around that time, that was January I made this decision. So January 1st, I was 23, so I think it was 2013, something like that. And so I make the decision on January 1st. I think around that time, 50 Shades of Grey was about to come out.
Oh, no.
Or it had come out, or there were, like, trailers or something like that. I had a girl literally the next day. So I make a commitment on January 1st. January 2nd, a girl calls me and say, yo, I just saw the movie. Would you like to have an arrangement like that for a month? And I was like, wait, what? She's like, yeah, I'll do whatever you want for a month.
Oh.
I was like, all right, devil, I know that's you, because I ain't never got no kind. And then the day after I made it was crazy.
Wow. That temptation was like, it's like Jesus in the wilderness.
That's it. And the funny thing is, like,
goodness.
throughout that time from when I made the commitment until the time I got married, it was like the kind of temptations and offers I would get without even me looking for it. I remember telling somebody, yeah, I'm celibate, you know what I'm saying? And then she was like, oh, even better. It's like I get to take your virginity. And I'm like, no, like,
Whoa.
that's not what's going. It was insane, but to the point where I knew, like, because all this was coming to me, like, okay, I'm where I'm supposed to be.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Wow. So did God honor, how did God honor your commitment?
I mean, I'm 33 years old. I'm blessed with a house, a beautiful wife, and 2 children. You know, that's skipping a lot of things, but like I say, like, the life I'm living and the things that I've been able to do, I shouldn't have been able to do. You know, God has blessed me to be able to go to Maldives and live out one of my, you know, lifelong dreams of staying in an underwater hotel. You know, I always talked about sitting courtside at a basketball game. I was able to do that. But all of these things I've been able to do by faith. And that's just the blessings for me side. Like, because of the walk that I took, right? I ended up God put on my heart to do a 21-day purity fast. So each day I would wake up, write the devotion. And mind you, this is while Jen was in the hospital with our first child.
Oh, wow.
So I'm in the hospital with her, waking up, writing out the devotional, send it out to the face group. Next day, same thing. And I did that for 21 days. And then after those 21 days, God was like, okay, now you have a book, publish it. And that book, you know, has been, it's called Sexual Purity for the Mind, Body, and Soul. And it's a 21-day 21-day purity fast. And that book, like, the feedback that I've gotten from that, you know, so many people have been blessed by that. And so just my walk, like how my family has seen me move, you know, even the decision to be celibate, it's inspired them to do certain things. And cousins of mine that are way younger start moving counterculture because they see how I'm moving, and they're like, well, God's blessing him. It works. And just the fact that God has kind of been able to use me to kind of, I don't even say be a beacon, but in a sense, an example, like, hey, he did it. If you do the same thing, it can work for you. You know,
I mean, even on Sunday when I was talking about Joseph, and yes, Joseph went through a lot of trials as God was developing his character, but when it was time for his dreams to come true, then he was prepared spiritually. But the thing he always did, no matter where he was, no matter what was happening, he always served God. He always committed everything to the Lord. And even when the Potiphar's wife, you know, tried to seduce him, he was strong, and he kept that strong. And I think that, and he was counterculture. Daniel was counterculture. You know, all these people, the disciples lived counterculture, and that's a kind of a hard thing to do. Oh yeah, you know. But once you start it, then you have to keep depending.
Yes,
you have to keep depending on God as you're going along. You said in like a quick conversation when your wife, we were talking about how you guys met. You have to tell that story or when it all kind of happened.
Okay, so it still starts in that same season of, you know, that 23, making that commitment, and I was like, you know what, Lord, I'm not dating anymore. You know, I'm not going to look for anybody. I'm like, if you are the creator of the universe and you can speak light into the world, you can easily bring me, you know, whoever my wife is. And so I ended up saying, okay, Lord, I'm not going to move until you bring me who is mine. And so now throughout this 5-year period, because I met me and my wife get married when I'm 28. So throughout this period, I am going through so many different experiences that are leading me to trust God. You know, I'm learning to hear God's voice better. I'm learning how to, okay, this is my voice. Okay, this is the enemy's voice. This is when God is speaking. And as I'm hearing that, God is telling me to do certain things. So he's like, okay, you know, I want you to go to this place and do this. All right, these people ask you to play for them, you know. And I start learning so many things, you know, just about the character of God. Like a simple thing, not every good thing is a God thing. Because sometimes we see, sometimes we see people who are homeless and we think, oh, I'm going to give them $50. And God was saying, no, don't do that.
That's
you know, do it this way or move it that way. So my whole life starts to really revolve around whatever God is speaking.
And even ministry.
Oh, absolutely. Yes.
You know, is not necessarily what God wants you to do. So go ahead.
And so what ends up happening is just like you say, right? You start off on a shore, right? And okay, you start listening to God and you start walking a little bit more. but you still have enough leeway that if you want to kind of jump back, you'll be all right. But now the more I'm talking, it's like the deeper I get to a point where I start looking at my life. And I even say this now, I'm like, God, you got me walking on water. And what people don't understand is that while that is exciting, it's a miracle, it's also terrifying.
Yes, it is.
Because you come to a place where it's like, God, like you really can't not talk to me now because I've been praying about this for 3 days and I haven't heard anything.
I'm on the high wire right now, right in the middle.
And like, if I can't figure this, I can't figure this out. I didn't bring myself here. So if you let me go, it's like, I'm done. And so like, I'm just going deeper and deeper with the Lord, going even more out of my means into what God has for me. And so I remember like, one day I'm with my friend and we're in Alafaya actually. And so again, I'm not talking to nobody. I'm not dating nobody. Like I'm not even like spending time on the phone with people. Now, I can't say throughout that whole time I was perfect because it was a learning process. I didn't sleep with nobody. But I had moments where I was like, okay, I was alone with you and you went a little too far. Okay, now I know. Just don't be alone with nobody. Yeah. And so it was just a learning experience. And it was just like, okay, create boundaries. And
that's right.
You know, and so I'm with a friend of mine. And we're in Alafaya, and God's like, okay, go to K's. I'm like, go to K's for what? And he's like, just go to K's. So we walk into K's, and he's like, all right, go look at some rings. And I'm like, oh, I kind of already feel
K's jeweler in K.
Yeah. I didn't want to say the whole thing because they didn't pay for advertising. So I'm there, right? And I go look at some rings. And so I'm like looking at some of them, and then I saw like this rose gold one, and just like stuck out to me. And he's like, yeah, you're going to buy that. And I was like, what? He's like, yeah, you're going to buy that ring. And I was like, I'm only going to buy it if I get these terms this way, this 0% APR, da, da, da. So I go up to the girl. I'm like, yeah, you know, I'm looking at this ring. I think I want to buy it. She's like, oh, wow. You must have somebody from up above helping you out. You came on the perfect day. I said, oh, Lord. She was like, yeah, we have this perfect sale that's going on only for today. You came at the right time. And so I ended up getting the ring and I'm making payments on it. Mind you, I have no girlfriend. I'm not talking to anybody. I remember like that ring probably sat on my desk because I was living with my parents at the time. So that ring is on my dresser. My mom walks in. She's like, oh, who's that for? I don't know. Why do you have it? God told me to get it. She's like, oh, okay. And then I remember
there's
like,
sell again.
Right. Months later, hey, I kind of like it. Can I take it? Like, I'll buy you for it. I was like, nah, it's not for you.
How did you know what size to get, by the way? Did you get
Oh, no, I didn't. You just got it just like that.
Okay. All right.
And so, you know, my mom is seeing the ring. Now she's trying to buy it from me. I'm like, nah, I'm holding it. And then, you know, there's a moment she's like, son, you know, I'm a little concerned. You know, are you okay? Like, is everything all right? I'm like, look, I know I look crazy. I feel crazy too. I'm out here buying a ring and da da da. And then I remember I got the main part of it. Then I bought the band to complete it. Still have nobody with it, but I got a really nice wedding ring. And so now you fast forward a little
Your
bit.
mom in the meantime thinks you're like, oh, my poor little son.
I think she was trying so hard to like not call me crazy because like I'm not like that.
Yeah.
But she just didn't know what to do with this information that she's seeing. Her son is just sitting there. Yeah, I'm waiting on God. No girlfriend, not talking to nobody. Like, how's this gonna work? And so, and trust me, even me, I had my moments. I was like, God, look. You got me out here looking like a fool. You got me looking crazy. My mom thinking I'm crazy now. Like, you know, come on. And so I remember, so a quick synopsis for me and Jen. When I first came to Florida, our families have always been very close. So when I first came, she would come by the house a lot. And then we started talking, seeing each other a little bit more. And then we ended up dating. But it went horribly. Like, it was bad because she was, you know, a little intimidated by me, afraid. And I'm kind of just like, hey, say hi. Hey, talk. And our relationship was just so bad that I was like, I will never talk to this girl again, like ever. And so we literally go like 10 years. You know, we see each other, we're cordial, but no relationship whatsoever. And so around that time now, like this is when I'm around 28-ish. Her cousin ends up having a baby. And I start kind of seeing the cousin, you know, just to acquaint myself with the child. And so because I'm going there, Jen starts to see me more. So we just talk casually or whatever. And she had kind of just got out of a bad relationship. So it was just cool. And so now, you know, she knows the journey I'm on. And then it was like, oh, you know, we could pray together or whatever. So she's praying, I'm praying. And then I'm like, you know, you pray for the person that God has for you, I pray for them, whatever.
No. Isn't that funny?
Right. So then one day she comes to the house, and then mind you, I'm like telling her, yeah, I think, you know, this is some girl that God showed me. I think that's the person I'm supposed to marry. And she's like, oh, okay, cool, you know, whatever. And so I show her the ring. And I'm like, yeah, this is the ring I got. I feel like a crazy person or whatever. And she's like, oh, okay, cool. And then day's done. What she never tells me is when I had shown her the ring, God speaks to her and says, that ring is yours. And she was like, what? Him? Nah. So, you know. Now we kind of progress. We're still cool, but I'm not making any moves or whatever. So this December on my birthday starts to come around, and I'm starting to get like this vibe, like, okay, she might be who God is leading me to. And so we end up, praying about it. We're talking about it, and I say, you know what? Leave me alone for a month. I don't want to see you. I don't want to talk to you because I need to know if this is really what God wants. I don't want to be close to you and you messing up my prayers, or, whatever. So we separate and have no communication for about a month. But then God keeps telling me that's the person. And I remember it was a Sunday. And I said, all right, God, I'm going to ask you for 3 things. If this person is truly my wife, then you're going to have my mom give me her blessing. You're going to help me. I'm going to talk to the pastor and ask him certain questions, and he can give me specific answers. And then the last part would be, well, the ring, I never got its size. So if she's really my wife, the ring will fit. I remember I prayed that prayer in church. Maybe like 10 minutes later, my mom calls me and she's like, Sonny, I just been thinking, Jen is such a nice girl. You have my blessing. And I'm like, oh my God.
Oh, here we go. Check.
So right after I call her, I literally called Pastor right after. He's about to take a flight. And he says, oh, someone told me to pick up the phone. What's going on? And I talked to him about the whole situation. And he answers every single thing the exact same way I prayed for. And I'm like, all right, well, the last part is the ring. We can't mess up here. So I invite Jen over to the house. Jen comes to the house, and then we start talking. Now, she doesn't notice anything I'm doing. So I'm like just kind of talking to her or whatever. And then without her noticing, I just slipped the ring on her finger. And it fits perfectly. And she looks at her hand. She's like, what's going on? And I was like,
all of a sudden there's an engagement
right.
ring on my finger.
I'm like, well, this means you're my wife. Now, we're not gonna, we're gonna go through the process still. This is not a proposal, nothing like that. But I now know. And she was like, well, that's crazy because I've known. And I was just,
my goodness. Oh.
So this is maybe April-ish. All right. So from that point on, every move I'm making now is like, okay, this is my wife. So she had like a horrible Android phone, got rid of it, got her a brand new iPhone, fixed all the stuff in her car, like her tires were messed up and fixed it. I'm just blowing money now because now I know this is my wife. Prior to that, I'm barely spending not much money, not because I'm cheap, but I just like, if I don't know you're my future, why am I?
Exactly.
Yeah. But now
don't
that I know,
money on nice dinners when that's not going to be.
That's it, exactly. So now that I know, oh yeah, just whatever I got to pay for, I'm taking care of. And then I remember now, I had a traffic ticket, and for the first time ever, and this is the only time I've done this, I decided I'm gonna fight it in person. Horrible idea. So I go to Orange County Cloudy Kirks. Jen was supposed to have a hair appointment that day. The person ends up canceling. She decides, oh, I'm gonna come with you. So I'm like, all right. So we go there. As I'm there, I'm about to fight. And then the judge is like, all right, this is this. If you try to rest your case and you're wrong, this is what's going to happen. God says, yeah, don't fight. Just accept it. I'm like, why am I here? And he's like, don't worry about it. So, go through the process. I'm walking out the doors. God says, make a right. I make a right. What's in front of me? Marriage licenses and whatever. He's like, yeah, go in there and get the stuff.
Oh, my goodness.
So me and Jen in there, we get the license, but once you get it, you only have 3 days. And so my parents are like in Europe, coming back from Europe that same day. And so now me and Jen are like, well, I guess we getting married then. So my parents literally come back from Europe. They get home. They come home. They see me there. And I'm like, oh, guess what? What? I'm getting married on Monday. What? And they're like, this is crazy. And I'm like, look, this is what God told me to do. I'm just going to do it. We end up getting the plane tickets. And then at first, my mom couldn't get a plane ticket to go. And I told God, listen, you sovereign, but I'm telling you now, I'm not getting married if my mom cannot be there. And then literally an hour later, my mom finds a perfect flight that can take her to Boston, because we were getting married in Boston, where her dad was. And then she would come back in time for work. Even the story of how we made the flight was insane, because when we get there, there's this insane line, so we can't even use the kiosk. No, there's a same line, so I can't use the regular check-in. I use the kiosk, it's not seeing my ticket. And at this point, I think I have maybe 20 minutes to get to the flight. I go up to the desk and I'm like, listen, this is my problem. The kiosk is not working. The lady's like, oh, there's nothing I can do for you. Then I try to go back to the kiosk, doesn't work. I go back. I say it again. She's trying to tell me there's nothing she could do, but I guess the manager hears her, comes back, he says, let me see your ticket. All right, all right, you need to run and try to make it. So we run to security. The line in security is insanely long. I'm like, we're not going to make this flight. Literally, soon we get there, we hear, all right, everybody, we're about to do expedited security. So you don't have to take off this, you don't have to take off that, just go straight through. We ended up making it to our flight right before the doors were closed.
Wow.
We get there to the hospital. even that like has a million stories that could just go on and on, but it just comes together in such a providential way. And then from there, like from that Friday to Monday, I'm married now. And so it was like, okay, what do we do next? Well, we got to get a place to live in an apartment. And it's just every little thing was just God like creating providence and just making a way. It was insane. It's been insane.
Were you scared at any point, or you were just like confident? This is because every time something.
I've just kind of gotten to a point. Like, I think in the very beginning when I started this walk, it was more like, being afraid because you don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
And then you kind of just get to a point where like God is pulling you so fast, you don't have time.
Right.
And so the tougher part that I've learned is like when you're walking and you're moving with God like that, who you're around helps so much.
Oh, that's a great point. Yeah.
Because if you're around people who are doubting,
you're right.
Instead of moving quickly, now you're like, oh, wait, well, they did say that this bad thing could happen. Maybe I should slow down. But when you're with people who's in the spirit, who's praying.
That's right.
And you're like, I think this person's my wife. Did you pray about it? Yeah, I did. All right, go. God got you. And then so now you're going. You don't have time to doubt.
Yeah.
But the wrong people can talk you out of so many blessings that God has for you. So I've kind of just learned, and to be very honest, like even early on, there were certain things I just didn't tell my parents because they just didn't understand. And it's okay. But as I kind of kept doing it, God could just make a way here and there. So it's like you just kind of get to a point where it's like, all right, God, I'm gonna just move where you want. And you have to remember too, like from 23 to 28. That's 5 years of God really training me.
Absolutely.
And not just hearing his voice, but like cutting those bad habits that I had when I was single, learning how to create boundaries, learning how not to need the attention of women.
Yes.
So now when I'm married and me and my wife may not necessarily getting along, I don't feel like I need to go to another woman for attention because I already learned this lesson.
Right.
And then, so it's just like, all of these lessons are just coming together and it's just like, okay, you know what to do now.
God was building your character.
That's it. Mm-hmm.
God was preparing you for what, and where you are, whatever season of life that you're in now, even.
That's right, yeah.
I was thinking, when you were talking about hearing from God, because there's a lot of discussion that I hear and a lot of questions I hear from people who say, I don't hear from God. That's why this whole Experiencing God Bible study that we are just finishing has been so good for people, because I kept thinking, why do I feel like sometimes I hear God and other people don't? And I don't know if you feel like that or not. Right. But I remember I went back and I was thinking about the first time I ever heard from God. So after I got baptized when I was 14 in a cold river in Ohio, and surrendered my life to Jesus. And it was shortly after that, the first time I heard God speak, which was, I heard the first voice, which was, you don't know Jesus. Who do you think you are? I didn't understand at the time that I thought that was my own mind, but it wasn't.
Right.
And I was crying. And my dad came in and said, what's wrong? Why are you crying? And I said, I don't know Jesus. And he said, of course you do. And as soon as he said it, there was this wash of truth from the top of my head to the tips of my toes. Yeah. And I knew he spoke truth. Yeah. And then when I started reading the Bible, it was like, powerful. And then what happened to me, these are kind of like major milestones for me in hearing God. Yeah. I was in my bedroom praying and I was kneeling at my bed. I was like 17, 18, maybe 18. And I'd finished praying and I was just thinking about God. That's all. I was just like pondering how good God is. And the Holy Spirit, the presence of God came upon me. And I remember nobody had ever talked about the Holy Spirit with me. Yeah. Nobody ever said, this is a possibility. Yeah, so I didn't know what was going on. So I remember I opened my eyes and I'm just looking around like, what's going on? Yeah. And I was scared, but not scared as in scary, but like power. And then God just kind of like, the Holy Spirit was like ebbing away slowly. And then I realized, I think that's when God called me, but I realized that something big was going on. But the pivotal moment for me, because I didn't do what you did, which was ask God ahead of time for things, what to do. And I started dating someone who was the wrong person for me. Right. And I was struggling, and I went to my dad and I said, Dad, I feel like, I don't know what to do. And my dad said, this isn't God's best for you. Once again, Holy Spirit, boom, truth. I knew it was truth, but I was coerced and manipulated. And and I got married anyway.
Right.
And then I went down a rabbit trail that was painful and nasty and ugly.
Mm-hmm.
We were together a couple years as Shauna's biological father. It was awful.
Yeah.
And laid on the floor in the bathroom crying, God, why did you do this to me? You know, I went. So it wasn't until after that, and I won't. And this isn't about me, but hearing God, when we do hear, we need to respond according to what He's saying.
That's right.
And you're right when you say, like, it can be scary because you're out there. But once you finally start learning how to do that, then you start trusting God. That's why trust in the Lord with all your heart. You can't, and it's impossible to please God without faith.
That's right.
So we're all walking around here and we make decisions every day.
Right.
We do things every day. We take jobs. We get married. We pick church, whatever it is.
Right.
But have we asked God?
That's right.
Is this where you want me to be? And this is what you want me to do?
Like, one thing I always tell people who ask me that question, I say, God actually talks a lot.
Yes.
But we've gotten so good at tuning Him out.
Absolutely.
That you don't even realize, you don't even realize you've mastered the art of ignoring God. So now when you start to unlearn that and you start to open up your ears a little bit more, then yeah. And even when I was in that season, I literally prayed and I said, you know what? I read about how David spoke to you and how you spoke to him and how you had a relationship with him with the ephod and etc. And I said, I want that.
Yes.
I don't want you talking to me through songs or whatever. I mean, you can do that. That's fine.
Right.
But I'm not settling. I want you to talk to me
Yes.
where I hear you audibly.
Yes.
And I have had moments like that where, in a weird way, it's like I'm talking to myself and then I respond, but it's not my words.
I've had that happen.
Yeah.
Totally have had that happen.
And
yes.
so, like, if somebody's in the room, they're like, oh, he's losing it. And it's like, I know, like, oh, that wasn't me. And I've had, like, certain conversations. And remember, too, like, I've had encounters where I've dealt with people who've been possessed.
Yeah.
And when you're in those situations, you realize that supernatural beings talk very, very differently from your typical human being. And they say things that human beings would not say. So it's like when you've been in these kind of situations, it's easier for you to kind of know when it's you and when it's not you. And so when you kind of start to become sensitive and create the environment, to kind of hear God's voice and you make it a habit. Yeah. Like the fact that I'm here originated from me learning organ, me asking to practice, and God saying, hey, play the piano. I just came here to practice organ, and God said, no, today I want you to play piano. And then for me playing, that's how Lynn met me, and then I met the entire church, and all these things happen. But if I don't listen to that one instruction, I might not even be here today.
No, it's so I always tell people that for me, doing what I'm doing today is ridiculous. I mean, honestly, for me to be a pastor in a church is ridiculous.
Right.
But it started, honest to goodness, in about 2002 when we moved to Florida, and I call it in the secret place with God, where every single day, it's the first time I hadn't worked, spending time at home, I'm playing the piano, I'm singing and worshiping at home, and reading the Bible and confessing my sin and asking God and hearing God. And then someone said to me, we want you to sing a special at church. I had never it had been years. I used to play the piano in church. I'd never played for myself to sing. And they said, well, we have somebody who will play for you. The Spirit said, absolutely not. Ooh. You are going to play for yourself. And I'm like, no, yes. I'm like, okay, yes. So I went in and I told the director of music, I said, are you okay if I play for myself? He said, yeah. I said, I'm really nervous. He said, that's pride. You need to get over yourself. So I did. I played the piano and I remember shaking.
Yeah.
It was an emotional thing. Then the next time somebody asked me to sing, I was in a choir and they're like, will you sing a song? I had a choir robe on and people say your knees are knocking. My knees were knocking. But because I kept saying yes.
That's
I say that all the time. Like you just say yes, whatever it is. Go, like he said to you, go around the corner and get your license to get married. I mean, but there was a whole series of yeses before that.
And not even to cut you off,
Yeah.
but the thing I love that you describe about that is the first time you're super nervous, the second time your knees are shaking. And some people have this conception like everything that you do in faith, you're going to be like super excited and powerful about. And it's like, no, probably about a good 90% of it, you're terrified.
Yes.
But the point, do it scared. Do it afraid.
Do it scared.
But still do it, because as you do it, the main thing that God cares about is, were you obedient? You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
It's not, it doesn't count because you were afraid and you still did. No, did you do it?
Yeah.
And, for anybody listening, like, we are not these supernatural superheroes.
No.
We are regular people who we say yes when you're confident. We say yes when it doesn't make sense. We say yes when we're terrified.
That's right.
Just say yes and move. You know what I mean?
Move. Do something.
That's it. Yeah.
And it's just, I was just thinking about this. Thinking about what you're doing, and you're young. I'm getting older now, but this is where God has called me, and I never would have picked this. Mm-hmm. And so I think about like Abraham, when God said to Abraham, go to a place that I'll show you.
Right.
And so like, I know that we're conditioned to want to be successful, to want to be this or to want to be that. Mm-hmm. And God, in at least my experience, hasn't said, this is exactly where you're going to be and what you're going to be doing. Now, I have had the voice of God say things to me about my future, and that haven't even happened yet.
Right.
But I don't even focus on that. Mm-hmm. I don't even care about that. I only care about today.
Yeah.
And where He has me going, and so I think if people could do what you said, learn to stop ignoring, retrain ourselves. And begin to get rid, because there's a lot of noise.
Yeah. Yes.
Jesus, I just read this morning, I was reading Mark chapter 1, and Jesus went to the lonely place.
Yeah.
I'm like, that's so beautiful. Mm-hmm. He went to the lonely place. Mm-hmm. He just wanted to be by himself, and not in a place where there was Netflix and a cell phone and a TV, out in the middle of nature to pray and to get his mind around. And I think that's what we're missing. I really hear the Lord. I don't know how you are, but like, I hear God speaking, especially when I am out in the middle of nowhere.
Oh, yeah. I love to do like, technology fast, or just even fast in general, where like I've learned for me, and God has said that to me, like when I fast, He'll be like, yeah, just don't touch your PS5 for a little bit. Just leave that for like 45 days. And I'll be like, so not food? He's like, no, you're fine with food. Food is not an issue for you. It's the other stuff. So I'll just not do that.
Yeah.
But when I kind of leave those things, all of a sudden everything starts to get clear.
Yes.
And when we talk about in God's time, Jesus' time, about going to a lonely place, and you think about the world that we live in now, when I was telling you the people around you make your walk easier or harder, now you magnify that by an exponential amount when you consider social media. So it's like there's so many things that God has for you, and then you just go on the wrong profile or you see the wrong post, and it's just sending your mind completely in the wrong place.
You're
and
right.
It's like, while social media, yes, can be a tool, it's like even that you have to start being very, very intentional about the things that you're feeding your soul, because
you're right.
Little do you know, they could be leading you into what God has for you or not. And it's like,
you're right.
To make it very clear, like, this is not easy. It's a walk that has many ups and downs. When we talk about, like, when you say there's good things that God has said to you and they haven't come to pass, I've been in that place where God is like, okay, you're going to reach this, or by the end of the year, this is going to happen, and certain things didn't happen. And I kind of keep coming to God like, you said this and da-da-da-da-da. I'm like, am I going crazy? Do I even still hear from you? Like, what's going on? And I remember God said to me, like, I need you to understand something. If, let's say I said you were going to become a millionaire, if I wanted to, I could make you a millionaire in the next hour, in the next minute. I just, boom, and that's it. But I'm more focused on you becoming.
The journey.
That's it. I need you to become. I need you to grow into this person, so that when you're this person, I can use you for far more than you just being wealthy. I can use you to go speak to these people. And if I take you to that point and give you that authority to lay hands on the sick and heal, I need you to become. And I've learned
the humility in that.
I've learned that the journey gets easier and more bearable when we focus on becoming.
Absolutely.
Rather than, okay, I need to get to the result.
And we've so I tell the story of when there's always been this funny thing that's happened when I've been in ministry with my husband, which is we got to move.
Yeah.
I mean, literally from the beginning. And so I knew God placed me as a worship leader in a church. And then there was this big thing looming out there all the time of, we've got to move, we've got to move, we've got to move. And we were going to sell our house, by the way. Our house was on the market. It was sold. We were moving. And then the person who bought it said, there's this crack, which was just a settlement crack. No, we don't want the house.
Right.
So it went out of contract. We weren't moving. I had quit working at the church and all these things. So these things kept happening. But I remember we were on vacation and we were up in the North Woods and I was on a kayak and it was rough. The winds were rough. And I said, because I'd been saying to God all along, bring my husband's job to Florida, make it in Florida, and it wasn't will you, it was do it.
Right. And sometimes you got to do that.
It was like, do it. And so I'm like, you called me into this position. You've done all these things. And this is but this is what happened. And all of a sudden, I heard God's voice clear as a bell say, but what if I don't? That was like, I'm crying right now thinking about it. And I remember just like stopping. I was like paddling against and I just stopped. The wind is blowing. And I stopped and I said, God, if you don't bring my husband to Florida and you send us somewhere else, I'm crying, then I will go.
Yeah.
Because my life is not my own. And wherever you want me to go, I will go. So my husband pulls up in a pontoon boat and he sees me and he's like, are you okay out here? I'm like, I'm good. And at this point, the water was like glass. So I get in and I said, I'm good. We go back to his parents' house and it's this beautiful Swiss chalet. I'm in the middle of nowhere and I'm pulling up and I get out and I walk up to the house and Jim was online and he goes, this is weird. I got an email from my boss and my boss said, when I'm done with vacation, he wants to talk to me about an opportunity in Florida.
Wow.
I died. I was like, okay, God, my life is in your hands. This is my calling, whatever it is. And you can move me, you can keep me, whatever. It was a huge lesson for me.
Yeah.
So anyway, didn't mean to go down that path.
No, I love it. Because that's, to me, that speaks greater than any sermon. Because, the concept of Christianity and church, everybody simplifies it down to being a good person. And to some extent, yes, that's kind of it. But the real meat of it is those moments. And I love even the fact that, you're honest enough to say like, yeah, I was pissed. I was fighting with God. Like, I tell people, if you've never been mad at God, you don't have a real relationship with God. Like, I remember I went through one of the craziest situations, and for 3 days, I didn't pray. And this was weird for me because I'm praying like every day at this point. And then my prayers be like, good morning, God. And then, all right, bye. And then, I'm just doing it to like be respectful. But I was pissed. And I remember my cousin at the time, who I call him the Samuel to my David. And he said to me, you still mad? Yeah. All right, cool. Just pray though. And I was like, oh, whatever. Next day, you still mad? Yeah. Did you pray? A little bit. All right, cool. And the third day, you still mad? Yeah, I'm a little less mad, but I'll make it work. And then like that kind of kept me like, okay, you be mad, but then you're gonna get over it and then go back to communicating. And it's your story. It's these experiences that this is what it's about. Because when you have real relationship with God, you will do insane things, but then it's the change. Like, it's the change. That's what changes you. That's it.
And for me, it was like God had always planned on having Jim back.
Right.
He had always planned, but it was my heart that he's like, okay, this is what I gave you, but do you love what I gave you more than who I am and your relationship with me? And I'm like, but I really like that. And he's like, how about you put that down? Because I'm the one who gave you that in the first place.
That's right.
Oh,
even that concept, like when you say that, it gets me excited because that's something I constantly have to remind myself of. And we'll just take the concept of money because as human beings, that's what we worry about the most, right? And I remember one day I was like, God, well, I need to do this and I need to do that and got to pay the bills and then the cars and then whatever. And he said, who gave that to you? And I was like, you did. And he was like, do you not think I would give you something that I don't take care of? And he was like, yeah. And he's like, your problem becomes when you start worrying about your bills and taking care of the house and providing for your wife and you think you're the owner. You think that you own this house. You think you gave
Exactly.
the car. But if you understand that I gave it to you, then all you are is a steward.
Yeah.
So that means I will give you what you need to take care of it, regardless of how it may seem. I will always provide. And removing myself from a place of ownership, I even look at becoming a millionaire completely different. Because if God gives me $1 million today, and the next day he says, all right, give 995,000 away and you only keep 5,000, I'm not going to say no.
Right.
So you start realizing I own nothing.
I own nothing.
You know, and then the goals that we start clamoring for, what do they mean if at any moment, okay, let's say your goal is to get a Lamborghini. All right, you get the Lamborghini, and the next day God says, hey, give it away. What are you going to do? Say no?
Right.
So it's like, I'm just a steward. So I have it now, and when I don't have it, I don't have it. And you take that same approach with my wife. I don't own my wife. I don't even own my children.
That's that's a really good point too. That's a really big deal with people, especially when they start getting older.
Right.
You know, go ahead.
You feel like, oh, like, for example, my whole family's play piano. So I may feel this obligation that my son has to play piano, but it's like, that's when I'm in that position of ownership.
You're right.
But if I'm a steward, maybe he's supposed to be a basketball player. Maybe he's supposed to be.
That's right.
I just have to steward.
That is so true. And you get, I just told somebody, I don't know, last week, she was talking about her children and her children are getting older. And I said, you don't own your children. My kids, you know, they're your age. And I've always felt like that, you know, from the time they were teenagers, younger, you know, let them fail a little bit, let them learn a little bit. They're not mine. I don't possess them. And they're going to make their own choices. And I look at it too, like they stand before God separately.
That's
like
right.
I am standing before God on my own. And so I just need to equip them and help them. So it's, there's so much. There's so much to talk about. Is there anything else? What are we here on time? Okay. How long have we been going, Damien?
A little under an hour.
Okay. We have a little bit more time. What would you say, as far as you've talked a lot about your faith, have you had any great challenges? Because we know that God's been blessing you out of, you know, your obedience, and God has blessed you. Does blessing mean the absence of challenge or
not
suffering?
Not at all. No. And I would say this. It's like, you know, when I think about, you know, some of the challenges that I face. So like, for example, you know, first getting married, even knowing that was the person that God had for me, even knowing that I got all these confirmations, I had moments when I was like, yeah, this is not going to work. Like, I never got as far as like, oh, I want a divorce. But I remember like my first 3 months of marriage, I was so like shell shocked. I was researching annulments. I was like, oh wait, okay, 3 months or whatever. And it was my cousin. I was like, bro, just calm down. You're going to be all right. And it's like, people don't understand sometimes, like, just because God puts you in a situation doesn't mean you will understand it the way you're meant to understand it. And it's still a place of growing. So like my marriage is, again, something I have to steward. So when I've kind of faced these challenges in my marriage, the thing that always brings me back is my foundation, knowing, okay, this is what God has for me. And so if God is giving me something, that means it's the best for me. So earlier on, I'd be like, God, you gave me this wife, but she's this and I'm that and this and this and this and, you know, whatever. And then I start to change my prayer and I said, okay, you gave me her. So that means she's what's best for me. Show me why she's best for me. Show me what it is. And then I started to see things that I wasn't really paying attention to. And so now even when I go through any tough stretches in my marriage, I come back to that place and it keeps me grounded. And it's funny, like I've talked to every single married couple I've talked to, atheist, secular, whatever, I ask them the same question. And I say, you know, Christian as well, pastors, all that. And I say, was there ever a point where you wanted to divorce your spouse? Not one person has never said no. They always have said, yes, I wanted to divorce them. And I'm like, okay, so what is it that kept you? And it all came back down to the foundation, the reasons why you married this person. What was the thing that kept you? And so even when I think, you know, that's just the marriage aspect of it. I think, you know, even now I'm in a place where like I've been trusting God so much and I'm kind of just so deep in the middle of waters where like sometimes I feel like certain situations aren't going the way I want them to. And I'm like trying to control everything. And I kind of put this video on my Instagram the other day when I was saying, you know, I was waking up every morning. I was like, Lord, I'm in this hole, like, I don't like where I'm at, maybe relationships are not, maybe my finances or whatever, but like, I don't like this place that I'm in right now. And I got to this place trusting you, you told me to make these decisions and to do this. And now I'm in this place where a lot of things are not going the way I wanted them to go. And I'm in this hole, take me out. And I remember I was like, it was like 2 weeks straight and I was just saying the same thing. And then like maybe a week ago, I said it again. And he responded to me. He said, Daniel never asked to get out of the cave. And it just punched me in the face completely. And I was just like, whoa. And he said he prayed that I'll always be with him. Because if I'm always with you, it doesn't matter what the problem is. It doesn't matter how good it is or how bad it is. I'm with you. And so that just reshaped everything. Right. So like, and I was saying, whether you are in massive debt, whether your health is good, whether it's bad, no matter what the situation is, good or bad, the only focus that it should be is that for without a shadow of a doubt that God is with you, so that now no matter what, you'll be okay. And so when I think about the things that I've gone through in my life, and even most recently, it's not even, as I jokingly say with my wife all the time, like, I don't do anything. Like, I'm not out here trying to talk to other women or whatever. My phone is open. I'm not in nobody's social media. I don't do anything. So I keep my life very simple because I just don't want the extra drama. But there are things like, maybe you want to send your child to a better school, or, because my son was born premature, there are certain challenges that he's had to have developmentally or whatever. And I remember, like, I'll use that one specifically. I remember when my son was first born, because he was so early, doctors were saying, oh, he may have issues with this and whatever. And then as he got older, he's had a speech delay. And so I remember, like, when he was about 2 years old, he's still not really talking. He's just, he says tiny little things, but he's not where he should be. And I remember walking on the block in my house, and I was looking at God like, God, the only thing I ever asked for was a child that I could be able to talk to and communicate to. Like, that's been something that was so important to me. And now the child that you gave me, I'm not even able to talk to him. And it used to just kill me. It killed me. And God would keep saying, your son is fine. Your son is fine. And I would go back and in my mind, it wasn't fine, because I'm trying to talk to him, and when he goes to therapy and it's not fine. And it was frustrating. And it was just kept feeling that feeling of like forsaken by God. Like, yo, come on, man. Like, that's all I ever wanted. I don't know if a lot of guys are like that, but when I was younger, like, I wanted to be a father. I wanted to have, talk to my kids and share my experiences, my wisdom, and just, do things better than I had, experienced them. And so going through that and kind of seeing my son, have struggles with communication, and God keep telling me he's fine. And I'm like, you're saying he's fine. I'm looking at him and I don't think he's fine. And then I remember my mom was like, yo, relax. And and a lot of people was around me at that time. I was like, he's a kid, give him time, relax, calm down. So I just started to just relax. And I was like, all right, God, you do your thing. And I had to laugh at myself the other day, because my son comes up to me and he's like, Dad, I'm just not feeling like talking today. And I just looked at him and, like, I'm not going to be hyperly expressive emotional, but, like, I prayed for that, and then, like, when the other day he comes to me, he's like, Dad, I love you so much. And it's like, I had to kind of, like, take a second and just be like, I was just yelling at God about the fact that my kid wasn't right. And yet now, here he is saying these things to me, and it makes you just like, yeah. And you also have to kind of just be in a position and thank God so much for his grace, because God is looking at us telling us we're good, and we just attack him and berate him and why did you let this happen, whatever. And
Absolutely.
God is just like, just give it time. And that's why I always say God is only truly appreciated in hindsight. And so now, even with my son, he's saying so much more now. So
how old is he now?
4.
He's 4. Okay.
And so now, like, he's doing his thing. He's talking and he's saying all these things. And sometimes he says some little crazy things, but I can't even be mad, because I look at Jen like, look, we prayed for this. And so, I'm not going to be upset when he says something crazy. God, I pray for it. Now I'm going to correct it. Yeah. But just hearing him, hey, Dad, I'm frustrated today. I don't want to listen to you. Like, there's a part of me that's like, hey, you prayed for it. Be grateful. Because there was a time when if you couldn't do it, you'd be, in tears and shambles, and now he can. And so it's like, I've just kind of come to a place where it's just like, it can get bad. And it doesn't necessarily mean that the bad is always going to come out the way you want it to. But as long as he's with you, you're going to be all right. And sometimes you just got to give it time.
And I keep going back to our children are not our possessions.
That's right.
Like God gave you him to steward
That's right.
him, whoever and whatever, and all of those things together. And I find also that as parents, as someone who's gone through the whole parenting thing, that I was comparing my kids to, what's going on with so-and-so
Right.
or this person over here and their kids. And are they at the same level? There's like all this weird fear or something. But I love the way how patient God is with us.
Yeah.
You were out there like, you're insane. I want my way. This is what I want. This is what makes me happy.
Yeah.
And God's like, seriously, I love you so much. It's okay. And he's so patient.
That's it.
And I'm really, really grateful that he is, because I look back on my life and go, I was a big old rebellious mess and still do have my issues, But is there anything that you would like to say, or any conclusion, or what do you want to say to anybody who's listening today?
Listen, I tell anybody listening, that place that you are right now in your life, whether you have been a Christian for a long time or you haven't been a Christian at all, like, it's just it's deeper than just going to church. It's deeper than being a good person. It's deeper than knowing the Bible and knowing scriptures. It's deeper than praying. It's developing a real, genuine relationship. And when you start to tap into that, and when you start to walk into that, God will massively change your entire life. And it will be scary sometimes, it will be exciting sometimes, but you will know that you are in the will and the purpose of God, and the people that you will bless, the people that you will touch, the places that you will go, the things that you will do will not only change your life, but the lives of everyone close to you, connected to you. And so I say, strive for that relationship with God. And I don't want to say that in a cliche way. What does a relationship with God mean? It means learning how to communicate with him. Maybe you don't hear him, but he talks to you through other people. He talks to you through music. He talks to you when you pray. He talks to you through songs or words or poetry, whatever it is. Get very comfortable with how God communicates to you, and then listen. If he tells you, go to Walmart, buy some milk, and go wait on this block, do it. And even if you wait on that block and nobody shows up and you just got rotten milk in your hands, it's okay. The point is to just be obedient and to keep listening, because it will lead you to where God has you. And when you are in that place, the things that God can do to you, for you, with you, through you will be life-changing. And ultimately, you never know what God's full purpose is for you, and you never know what God's full purpose is for the people that you're connected to. God could lead you to someone who could be the next president of the United States, or the next, billionaire oil tycoon. You just never know. And for those reasons, just always seek to be obedient to that voice. Develop the relationship, develop the communication, be obedient, do it afraid, do it terrified, but walk in faith and know that God got you.
That's awesome. I really appreciate you coming in.
Oh, thank you for having me.
We have to do it again. We'll pick a subject, and then we'll come in and just.
At this point, it's kind of turning into a show a little bit. A cell of patina, a patina in a cell.
Patina in a cell. We can pick the two hardest names to say together.
10 times fast.
Oh man! Well, for those of you who've been watching, I just want to thank you for tuning in. And if you want to hear more from Assel, just let me know. I'll bring him back on. So I think it would be fun. So listen, you guys have a great day.
All right.